What was watching again the film and looking at it from last week? Certainly areas that every individual and his units we can and need to get better at. But I was also really proud of the response of players and like I said, there's a lot to work on this week, and namely, getting ready to play a good BYU football team, and yet I think each week is about trying to work on the things that you can control, and the number one thing you control is your improvement. And so, looking forward to this week. Had a good start to it, and we need to continue to have a really good week of preparation.
Paul, when you initially announced Danny Davis's suspension, you said 2 games, but could be more.
Right.
Is he going to be eligible to play, in your opinion, this week?
Danny will be eligible. During it, he was able to practice. So it's a little bit different than, like with Xander and Isaiah, where they're kind of coming out. Both of those two, Xander and Isaiah came out of it well. And, Xander ended up getting 50-some snaps, and Isaiah was close to 30. But as far as Danny, suspension is served, and he'll be ready to go.
Well, you said you got a lot to work on. Is that normal course of action in a season, or are you at all concerned about anything that hasn't come around yet?
I think it is normal, and I think it's our job to always find areas that we can work on and improve. And certainly there's a couple that jump out right away, and offensively, talked about, protecting the football and taking care of it. And I think, I know there's been years in the past where you're talking about that on week 9 or 10, and then I think there's, it's the quest for playing good football, and I don't think that ever ends, and what's fun about the game is that each week you're presented with different challenges, and talking to some of our younger players, like we had talked about Saturday about defensively, I thought we did a good job of kind of adjusting. But then talking to some of our players yesterday and today about how do you learn to adjust or change something that you haven't prepared for. And so there's a process that they've got to go through that's not maybe as obvious as, when someone loses contain on defense or you turn the ball over. So I think you're always looking to find ways to improve.
Back.
Just an all-around pretty solid performance by Taiwan Deal. As a guy who basically hasn't played in 2 years, do you think that provides a little bit of an inspiration or some motivation for guys who are working through injuries right now and maybe can't see that finish line? It's not quite as immediate to them.
Absolutely, and I think it even helps those that have been playing, but teammates that were, beside Taiwan or Zach Bond, seeing what they were going through last year, and a guy like Mikey Mascalunas, who's out right now, but knowing that you can come back, and when you do, you'll get your opportunity. And when the opportunity comes, try to maximize it.
BYU's already beaten Arizona, played Cal close. I know they did not have the season they anticipated last year, but what's the biggest difference you've seen in BYU from the time you've had a chance to evaluate them this year?
Yeah, I mean, if you say different than when we played last year we weren't sure if their quarterback was going to play, and now he's playing, and offensively, you got a sense of what they're doing. It looks like they obviously made changes on the staff, and so you got a better maybe sense of what they're doing, and defensively, played against a lot of those players, but they've adjusted it, and some of those same players that we played against last year are starting, but in different positions, and so you've got knowledge. Anytime you play a team the year before, you've got an idea of what to expect. But just like us, they've made changes. We've made some changes, and so I think it's we've got enough film to prepare for, and yet really do. You look at it, and offensively, I think they got a number of weapons. Defensively, they got really good players, and you see it come together on special teams. So it's a week where we've got to get better because it's a good team.
Paul, I think you've had special teams penalties in each of the first 2 games.
Yep.
Looks like committed by young guys, though. Are those guys just still not as sharp as you need to be because of lack of experience?
I think those are, certainly areas. The first game was the 2 offsides, and I didn't think we did a good job of adjusting it, and then it was, last game it was one player, the same penalty, kind of came out of it two different ways, but everyone's got to learn from that one, and it's a great example. I mean, field position's so crucial in the game of football, and on both the ones where we had holding penalties on the punt return for us, they weren't great kicks, so now you're giving them a chance to, changes the field. So we've all got to learn from it, and this one was with a young player, but we've got to, if we're putting them out there, we got to be able to trust them that they play the game the right way, and that's certainly an area where we got to get better.
Jason.
What can Danny Davis bring to your passing game that maybe you didn't have with him out these last couple of weeks?
Well, I think that it's one more player that's played, and Danny's still young. He's starting his second season, but I think he's a guy that's played in games before and made plays, and so I think that he gives you some depth, and certainly he's different than any of the receivers we're playing with right now. So it gives you depth and a little bit of a different skill set.
A career high in carries for Taylor in a game that wasn't exactly down to the wire. If you played the game again, do you think you'd call his number that much? And did you have a sense that he was getting the ball that much?
I don't. We don't have a pitch count or a carry count, and I thought every time he got it was meaningful, and so I wouldn't change it.
How would you assess Alec Ingold's performance these first two games?
I've liked the way that Alec has played, and hasn't been perfect by any means, but I thought that he's playing really exactly how you'd want your seniors to be playing, and I think there's an urgency to it, and I think there's a confidence in the way he's playing, and I think he's putting it all out there, and so I've liked. Said this to him after week one, if this is your starting point, that's really good. And if these two are the two games we've played are the starting point for this year, then I think it's a good start. I like the way he's playing.
Hey, A.J. Taylor's led the receiving corps the last couple of games. Did you see something at camp that you might have been looking for this kind of breakout from him?
No, I mean, what I've always seen with A.J. is he's an unbelievable worker. He's now, third year. I think that he's probably concentrating on playing the game more than, I think when you're early in your career, you're trying to make sure that you're doing the right thing. And then I think each player goes through that phase. I just don't want to screw up. And then, can I make some plays? And now I think that, so he's progressing as a player. And I was thinking about this with, there's games where it comes your way, and it's no different really than, I thought T.J. Edwards and Ryan Conley played really good football, both games, but their numbers were different in game one than game two. And, I thought Andrew Van Ginkel had more production, and part of it was I thought he played better, but two, the game kind of came to him, so I think it's, when does opportunities come your way, can you cash in on them? And, AJ's had that where it's, his number was called, and the way we executed and the coverage that was given, he was open, and so I don't think all of a sudden AJ's done something remarkably different. I guess is my point. He's playing, and when it comes his way, he's made plays, and he's in each game he's had a couple plays that he'd want to get better at, and that's what's kind of fun about this whole deal is there's always room for improvement.
Brian.
How did Isaiah Loudermilk play on Saturday, and how did he come through it after his first game?
Yeah, Isaiah, he played well, and had some production, and I thought was disruptive, and came out of it well, and it's getting those first snaps and are important, and kind of getting back into the groove of it. So. It was good. It was good to have him in there, and like I said, he was productive, and I think that there's a number of areas where he can get better, and playing will help that.
Well, you've not had to suspend many people here at Wisconsin. Everyone responds differently. Are you curious to see how Danny will respond to that when he gets an opportunity, when he gets back with the first team and all those types of reps?
You know, you don't know for sure, but you know, it's not like been with him every day, and I've been proud of the way that he took it and learned, and I've been proud of his response to this point, and therefore that leads me to be confident in the way that he'll respond, because he's really been having to respond to it throughout it all.
Well, you've been able to work in your number 2 inside linebackers, Chryst and Griffin Grady. With Grady out this week, it looks like at least Sanborn is listed next on the depth chart.
Right.
He did some things in camp. What do you like about him, even though he's so young right now?
Yeah, he did do some really good things in camp, and I think Jack's got a natural linebacker instinct to him. I think that he's big enough and also sure enough in what he's doing. Not that he doesn't have a lot to learn, but he's sure enough that he can play physical. A lot of times it's hard for any position to play physical when you're hesitant, and so I think, you know, Coach Bosted's done a nice job of working with him and the other players, you know, so that he's got a good understanding of what we're doing. And then I think, you know, he trusts his talents and kind of that linebacker instinct. And so it does provide opportunity for Jack. And you always hate it at the expense of someone else. But, you know, Griff will be, you know, it wasn't as bad as we thought it was, which is always good. And he'll be back, but it is a good opportunity for Jack.